Oh, that boy Curtis Samuel is in trouble. Nah, he's not really in trouble, but you know what I'm saying? There is some concerns behind his faux or phantom injury. We're gonna dig into it. Dre and AJ is on the way, but in the meantime, the Trap or Dive podcast starting up right now. Trap it down. Trap it down. You gon' trap it down. Trap it down. You gon' trap it down. I just appreciate everybody watching.
Watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Dive.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of the Trap or Dive podcast, everybody. To you by 214 Media. I'm your host, Mual. And in here right now is me, myself, and then obviously the good man Dre. AJ is on the way. Just get an administrative item out the way before we check in with Dre. And whichever way you are listening, always be sure to rate, review, or like the show. If you are new to the Trap or Dive podcast, Trap or Dive channels, make sure you following on Twitch or subscribe on YouTube, man, and help the show's growth. It is truly appreciated. We got the good man Dre in the building. Hey, Dre hit me up 3 days ago. Hey, man, we doing a show this week. I got some shit to talk about. Man. What's going on with Dre? How you feeling, big dog?
Shit, man. Like I said, the data sports, man, we hadn't been doing shows regularly. We were doing them like once every other week or so. And, you know, for me, I kind of just took that time to detox and everything. Like I just kind of took a break from sports. I was going to watch basketball, my son into basketball and everything. So that was cool. But just recently, right before I hit you, but I went to New York this weekend. So I did that, went to the Big Apple. And the only reason I'm mentioning that, because I think Jamal, you'll appreciate this. I'm drinking a good bottle of bourbon here that you can literally only buy in the state of New York. So it's a Brooklyn distillery. If you're in Brooklyn, check out Great Jones Distillery, get you a bourbon tour. And this is some damn good whiskey here. So, yeah.
All right. Little man in AAU league, or he doing like boys and girls?
Not yet. He's doing boys and girls right now, but he's also doing training. So I got him working with a personal trainer and everything. So he gonna get to that AAU level,
That's what's up, bro. Hey, on everything I love, bro. I'm actually happy with Dakota came in here. What the fuck is wrong with her? Hold on, let me add AJ to the. Bro, she came in this joint sprinting, bro. Hold on, let me add my boy AJ in this thing. But hey, bro, I'm real happy in a sense. What's going on with these comments? There we go. All right, I'm real happy because like. I was just talking to somebody maybe like a week ago about the opportunities that we had versus the opportunities that our children can have in terms of like the training part. Bro, I swear to goodness, bro, if I had any lick of investment from my parents outside of just taking me to a game or a practice, bro, I don't know what numbers it could have done for me. Like, cause I was already good. But then when a coach decided to invest into me, like one of my last years of playing football for teams, like that I shot up from where I was to where I really could have been. Like it was a difference maker. So you putting your son in training, bro. I'm happy for little man. I hope it work out for him for sure. Especially, is basketball the one he want to do, or is it more so that's the sport that you want to invest in him, or how's that working out?
Well, that's his favorite sport. Like, he loves basketball.
Okay.
I mean, he been playing since he was, yay high. And I've been like, I used to take him out, train him myself, but I figured I better get him a personal trainer, someone who can give him like the real basics and everything. So, he's been doing pretty good with that. And you are so right about us growing up, because we definitely didn't have those resources with our parents.
Yeah, man. AJ, big dog, how are you feeling, man? Everything good with you?
Yeah, man, I'm cool, man. How y'all?
I'm all right, bro. I can't complain too much. I figured, this was a day in which you could you can shine, you can flourish, because we're talking about a topic. We're talking about a topic in Curtis Samuel that you've been adamant on for over a year now. So let's go ahead and get to the show agenda today for everybody that's checking
Man,
in.
I see the comments already popping. We ain't even
Yeah.
speak on the subject yet.
Yeah, man.
Football season, people
look,
ready.
Everybody wants to talk a little Curtis Samuel, man. So on the agenda, on the topics today, it's short and sweet, but in the same time, I'm sure it's a lot of discussions within these topics itself. Concerned with Curtis Samuel, or are we concerned with the situation that Curtis Samuel's missed 3 straight days already, and he's missed. I think he missed like the last day, if not the last 2 days of mandatory mini camps as well. I'm gonna look into that because I think it was the last 2 days of mandatory mini camps as well. So are we concerned with Curtis Samuel at all? What's the situation behind that? That's the first thing. The second thing is the fellas AJ and Dre haven't been on since training camp officially started. So I'm gonna make sure that we get their key takeaways from training camp so far. Whichever route they want to go, we're gonna talk about it. And then storylines, overrated, underrated. What are some underrated storylines that Dre, AJ, and myself think that we should all be paying attention to more? And what are some overrated storylines in which that's been regurgitated or spit out there that maybe isn't that big of a deal? We're going to dig into that, and that's our show for today. So let's get into the big topic. What's going on, Hawk? Man, I appreciate you checking in. Miss Perry said she ain't counting on him. So look, I'm not either, and that's what we're about to talk about right now. Fellas, the floor is yours. Whoever wants to take the floor first, are you concerned with Curtis Samuel's situation at all? Floor is yours.
I mean, I think when it comes to Curtis Samuel, man, it's just been an interesting like saga with him, because I know for sure that Washington knew that he was injured even when they signed him in free agency. Every team has different protocols that they go about passing guys with physicals, and they passed them. And now, fast forward to 2022 season training camp, he says that he feels perfectly fine. And maybe a week later, we're now in a position where it's like a conditioning issue, which makes absolutely no sense to me. I mean, we're talking about a wide receiver here that weighs about 190. Why do you have a conditioning issue coming into training camp? Like you didn't play any ball last year. Yeah, you had an injury, but you had all off season to be prepared for this moment, to ramp it up, to, show your value, show why, you got the $14 million a year contract, like be able to provide something of status to this court. But I mean, y'all know, like I've been saying, what does even Curtis Samuel do great that I'm even like supposed to be excited for? Like, even if he does come on the field, like, what am I getting? I'm not getting a number 1 wide receiver. I'm not getting a number 2 wide receiver. I'm getting a gadget player. So at the end of the day, for me, it was already a bad signing. But even if he doesn't play, I'm not really gonna miss anything. I can do so many things with Terry. I can use Terry in that type of position. I can use Jahad Dotson. I can use J.D. McKissick. I can get creative, use Gibson. I can use so many people if that's really what I'm going to utilize him for jet sweeps and all these different things. So it doesn't really bother me too much that, what's going on is happening. But I just feel like conditioning is insane. Because at the end of the day, you should be getting in these reps with your teammates. And then you didn't see him out there with Carson Wentz, Terry McLaurin, Jahad Dotson, Cam Sims, and others in California. I don't know what happened with that, but you didn't see him out there. And
he did say family related.
Yeah,
only because of the Spaces jump. They talked about that over there, so they said it was some family issue.
That sounds good. But typically it's someone just enjoying their off season and really not taking advantage of the opportunity to get better. I didn't see him even working out with Terry in Miami or anything of that nature either. That's supposed to be his guy. At the end of the day, I just feel like Washington should put themselves in a position to go and grab a veteran wide receiver right now. A lot of injuries are starting to happen in training camp, especially at the wide receiver position. You got James Washington in Dallas going down. Tim Patrick tore his ACL today. Different things happening. I think you try to go and bring in a guy that can truly be a number two, because you can't go into this counting on Jahad Dotson to be your number two, or even what Diami Brown is going to bring to the table. You have to go and get a veteran in that room alongside Terry. So I would start making calls to Emmanuel Sanders, Will Fuller, guys of that nature, bring them into the mix, because, I mean, we're only into 1 week of training camp and you already have these issues and you're talking about this was the plan all along. Like, when the fuck is he going to play football? Like, when is he going to utilize his speed? When is he going to be able to utilize the talent that he was given? If you keep creating this plan for just him, what about other guys? You feel me? Like, at the end of the day, it's like, it's all bullshit. Like, we're being fed bullshit by Ron Rivera and company. Some people gonna take it for face value. Me, like, I could read through the bullshit. Like, it's been going on since he's been here. It's always something. And then I didn't even add in the fiasco with what his injury really was last year. Like, there was so much mix up with what happened, if he had surgery, if he didn't have surgery, if he was just gonna go about rehabbing naturally. Like, it's just all over the place. So it's at the end of the day, for me, I just think that the fan base should just move past Curtis Samuel as a whole. If he plays, he plays. Even if he does play, he's not going to bring you nothing special to the table. He's not about to be no elite player. He's just going to be out there. It's just another body. He has some skills to him, but at the end of the day, he's never been a top tier player in this league or on any team. I wouldn't even count him as a top 30 wide receiver in this league previous to him even being hurt. So
before Dre go, hold on once. I just got to give a shout out to the good man, Amani. Our guy, Amani Dre. Appreciate that subscription, man. 10 months. Amani been rocking with us on Twitch, man. I appreciate you following us. Appreciate the faith and support, man. You've been helping me out when I don't know a damn thing about Twitch and I don't know a damn thing about that Discord stuff. So appreciate you always checking in. Appreciate you always showing some love. Amani did say he felt that Curtis Samuel was damaged goods and he won't finish the season. So who do we have that can be that number 3 receiver? Dre, I want you to go ahead and answer that and obviously get into your opinion on Curtis Samuel in that situation as well. What do you think about Amani's question? And then what do you think about Curtis Samuel?
Well, Amani's question can kind of be intertwined with what I was going to go in a little bit about AJ's opinion in regards to signing a veteran wide receiver right now. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly because honestly, I don't think Curtis Samuel right now was even slated to be the number 2 receiver. I mean, Jahan Dotson, he's impressed the coaching staff. I mean, so even if you say you can't rely on him, as a fan, I get that. Like, I mean, you make sense saying that, but the coaching staff seems to have that trust in him, and he's shown them some things since OTAs and even up in the training camp right now that they believe he is their guy at the number 2 wide receiver opposite of Terry. Now, as to Amani's question about the number 3 receiver, then this is where your 3rd round pick from last year has to show up in Diami Brown. So Diami Brown now, he has to be that guy. He has to, show it. Well, he's flashed in training camp so far from everything I've heard. I mean, but it's training camp, so you can't take too much from that. You want to see him in live competition against other defenses, but he's a guy they're relying on right now to be, that next up, if Curtis Samuel isn't available. So you have to kind of rely on those guys and give them that confidence and, put them out there, because that's the only way they're really going to show you what they have is when they're out there getting those live reps. I mean, Diami didn't look ready for the league last year, but that could have been a number of reasons. He was with a quarterback that didn't play up to his strengths. So he's with a quarterback now that does play up to his strengths. So he has to show what he can do in the NFL now. So I think you have to give those guys chances. And I mean, it's not like we're running out there with Dontrell Inman or something like we did 2 years ago where he was the number 2 receiver. You got guys that obviously this regime has drafted that they believe in, and they have to show them something. They have to, rely on these guys for now. So, that answers Amani's question and AJ's question. Back to Curtis Samuel. I'm definitely concerned. I mean, last year it was like a fool me once situation. Like I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I said, okay, well, maybe he just had this groin issue. I mean, I do know he's been nicked up throughout his career, but he hadn't missed games to the extent that he did last year. But, you know, what did we hear all last training camp? He's on the side field working. He's on the side field working. And then when the season came, it was like, okay, Curtis is still not ready. He's still not ready. So you gave him benefit of the doubt. Okay, maybe he just needs to get over this thing. They finally set him down. They should have put him on IR a long time ago last season, but they didn't. Fast forward to this year, you start to hear the same things. Curtis Samuel practices, then Curtis Samuel goes to the side field. So you got to wonder if this is even when he's healthy, like if he's out there running for more than an hour in practice or whatever, is he going to set himself back 2 or 3 weeks again every time he's out there? So that's the concern I have with Curtis Samuel at this point. And I don't know if you can rely on him definitely for a 17-game season at this point. But again, this is where you hope your young guys like Jahan Dotson is the first-round pick that you drafted him to be. Diami Brown is the 3rd-round pick that showed flashes. You're hoping he's that guy, so you don't have to make a panic move and sign a wide receiver.
I mean, I just think, like, at the end of the day, you can't go into the season counting on a rookie and a second-year player to be your number 2 wide receiver, no matter what they saying in Jahan Dotson in training camp, until we see those live reps against another team and really see how it translates his game from college to NFL. You can't bank on that. You know, I just feel like if Curtis Samuel is going to be someone that you can't count on, you're paying him a lot of money, right? I already believe he's not going to be here next year, no matter who's the coaching staff, because of his cap number. Like, he's definitely going to get released because they're not getting a bang for their buck right now. I just think that you should start looking at options to bring in a veteran presence. It may not be the likes that I said, like the Will Fuller, Emmanuel Sanders, but somebody that understands how to run routes and can be dependable somewhat. There's a lot of wide receivers out there on the open market.
The wild thing is, to your point though, like we said that for like the last 2 years too. Like last year we said they needed to bring in a veteran receiver and they chose against that. This year I think it's different though, because I understand what you're saying, but I think it's different this year because while we understand what they're saying, also like they haven't said that Curtis Samuel is actually hurt. They said that this man is out of shape, and like I don't think that they're telling the truth. Like, I'm in the same boat as you, AJ. I don't think that they're telling the truth in terms of like just saying he's out of shape. Because if he's out of shape, why on God's green earth is it taking him 3 days to get his shit together? Like, it don't take you that long to ramp up and say, you know what, man, I think he's good to go. Let's get him back in the mix. I think they're being precautionary for whichever reasons it is, whatever lower body reasons, health concerns it is. But I also think that the longer you wait in terms of trying to save face and trying to get the proper messaging out there to protect your player, but also like in the same sense, like when you're protecting a player like Curtis Samuel, you're also trying to protect your decision to sign Curtis Samuel. Like it's all a mix. It's all involved with one another. Like this is, and then the financial side too. Like you want to protect every single thing that you did when it came to Curtis Samuel. So I think all of these things that, you know, you take into account, I want them to consider the stashing, whether it's PUP or IR. I want them to consider it, but I don't see them doing anything like that because they want to defend what they have in Curtis Samuel. They want to make sure that they give him ample opportunity to come back. And I'm not saying that he's not healthy. If they say they have a plan, we'll see. Like it's only going to make them look worse if this plan is bullshit. That's the only thing that's going to do. It's not going to make us look bad. It's only going to make them look worse if this plan was bullshit the whole time. But if they want to go this route and possibly miss a whole nother season or have Curtis Samuel miss a good portion or good percentage of their games in 2022, that's the route they want to go. Cool. But a lot of people or some people are sitting here saying, like Richard in the chat, if Curtis can't stay healthy, trade him and pay Payne. I wouldn't expect them to trade him, but I get your sentiment. Move on. Like, move on from Curtis. And moving on from Curtis in a situation like us, and right now, would be signing that veteran, like AJ said. Signing a veteran, don't even think about Curtis until he can even show you that he can stack practices together, and then figure everything out from there. So that's kind of where I'm at with Curtis Samuel, is that, like, sure, get a veteran if you want to, but I don't think they're going to do it, because I think they want to wait until the last second to say, all right, it's time to move on, or it's time to get some depth at this receiver position.
I mean, I think they just overall stubborn. At the end of the day, if you really had this plan that you want to execute so bad, why not put him on the PUP list to start training camp? Like, it just makes no sense. Like, did he not practice the first couple of days of training camp? Like, he was a full participant, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just like, okay, then you come out publicly and tell us it's a conditioning issue after this man has got on the podium and met with the media and said he feels 100% perfectly fine. So what is it? And it's even worse if it is a conditioning issue, because you knew that training camp was coming on so-and-so date and you're not prepared. So what have you been doing this whole off season? Like, we're not talking about a D lineman here. We're not talking about an offensive lineman. We're talking about a wide receiver who runs for a living, literally at high speeds, at all type of precision cuts and all these different things. We're not talking about some 300-pound person. We're talking about a wide receiver. How are you not conditioned for training camp? Let's just say we are going to take it face value, right? How is your wide receiver that's supposed to be your number 2 not prepared for training camp and all the different things that come with it after not playing for a year? Because I don't care about how many snaps he took last year. He didn't play, in my opinion. Like, me and him damn near played the same snaps for the Washington football team. Like, just about.
Here's the thing with Curtis. Well, with the organization is in a rock and a hard place right now with Curtis. Like, you put him on the PUP list, you let him sit out for a couple of weeks to condition or whatever he needs to do. Then he comes off the PUP list. He practices for a couple of days, then something else is wrong with him. I mean, that's just my issue with Curtis right now. And it's like, I don't think rest helps at this point. Because he rested pretty much the whole offseason. He rested the last portion of the season last year. So, what helps him at this point? And I don't think it's rest. I just think it's a situation where now you'll just be lucky to get the good days out of Curtis. And that's it.
That man is an elite practice squad player at this point.
I don't know. You can't even use the word practice when you describe him. Shit, nigga ain't gonna do nothing. I ain't gonna do a goddamn thing. And what's even worse is the coaches, in the good words of what's that lady named Ruth off of Ozark, the coaches and the trainers don't know shit about fuck. They don't know nothing about what this man got going on in his lower body, his groin. Because I know it's some injury that they're trying to hide and trying to save face from. So, fellas, actually, let me catch up on some of the comments. So Cole mentioned, well, Hawk agreed with AJ. We are a stubborn organization. I would show these things, but my StreamYard fucking overlays be acting stupid when I show the comments with 3 people. But Hawk mentioned that we are a stubborn organization. Also mentioned that OBJ with the messed up knee was better than Curtis Samuel. Cole Tucker mentioned about his contract, that there is an out at the end of 2022. And that's kind of where we're angling in terms of, if you want to move on from Curtis Samuel, that's the ideal time to do so in terms of transactions. And then Cole also mentioned, Curtis Samuel's head is no longer right. He doesn't have the confidence in his body. That is the issue, I believe. Now, I don't know about that one, only because when he was on the field for, the 30 seconds that he was on the field, he made some type of moves. He made some things shake for himself, but the reporters glamored and clamored all over that, but it really wasn't. Nobody cares about a juke move that apparently shook Benjamin St. Juste out of his shoes. Like, none of that shit matters. It doesn't even matter. Amani, Cam Sims can take his snaps and would be a good number 3 receiver.
That's Mual's boy, Cam Sims.
Hey, that is my boy, man. And unfortunately, the way these coaches are acting, they don't even want to put him on the field, bro. So I don't even know if he's gonna get them snaps.
I rock with him, but he's not about to be my number 2, man. Like,
well, he said number 3.
No, he said number 3.
Number 3.
Yeah, number 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't even know at this point.
Rich, Rich said, Mual is right. You being paid. How are you not in shape? You getting paid by sitting. He ain't doing nothing magically to get in shape. Hog mentioned Samuel might be competing for the number 3 or number 4 spot. And Alex came through. What's going on? Alex said conditioning is code for injury. We ain't stupid. We know that. All of us. Ron thinks that we stupid. Ron thinks that he can put, like, Ron has always done this though, in that he has this way of trying to relay, his narratives to the media and hoping that the media buys into what he's saying. Like, he's trying to force his opinion or his story or his agenda onto the media, and he doesn't understand or recognize that everybody ain't about to fall for the bullshit. Like, it's never been that case for these guys. And I don't think Ron is ever going to get it. It's been 3 years now. I don't think Ron is ever going to get it. Keep trying. We'll see where that goes. Fellas, do we have any last thoughts on Curtis Samuel before we get to you all's thoughts and opinions on training camp altogether?
Curtis Stout.
Yeah, I think if Ron and them really have a plan and they want to protect this guy, they got to do a better job of doing so. Because at the end of the day, the media is going to be after it. It's going to become another saga throughout the season. Is he playing? Is he not? How many reps is he on the snap count? Like, then we all know how much he's getting paid, and we haven't seen anything. You got to do a better job of protecting your guys. Like, you can't have your guy get on the podium at training camp and say he's 100% perfectly fine when you actually know behind closed doors there's something actually going wrong or going on.
We have a plan. We do.
Yeah, like you can't do that.
First off, hey, Alex, let me tell you something. I was going through some shit last week. I just grabbed the nearest bourbon that I had and said, "Fuck it, let me buy it." They didn't have my tequila that I wanted. He's saying stop buying it.
He said that shit with conviction
liquor.
too.
Yeah, man. Come
Alex,
on, bro.
man.
Yeah, I'm about to say, hold on, bro. I just grabbed the nearest bourbon.
What's that?
What
Wild
is this?
Turkey?
Kentucky bourbon. It's just Jim Beam, bro. It's just Jim Beam. Something simple. I wanted some other shit, but I didn't want to pay no. He's 100% right. It was cheap as shit. That's why I bought it. That's why I bought it. I was like, bro, I want some liquor, bro, but I ain't about to get my Basil Hayden. I ain't about to get none of that shit. Let me get a little $15-$16 bottle. You know what I'm saying? And I keep it pushing for the week. So yeah, man. Hey, Breeze, check in. What's going on with you, big dog? I hope all is well with you. Miss Perry said, bring back Adam Humphries. You know what's funny though? Adam Humphries, I think people underestimated Adam Humphries last season because of, the fact that he wasn't nothing special. But all he did was get first downs for Washington. That's all he did. All he did was convert first downs.
We got 2 Adam Humphries on the team right now. We got Dax Milne and what's the other cat name? Alex Erickson. Him and Dax Milne. Those are the Adam Humphries on the team.
Those are two white boys, huh?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We met our quota already.
Met the quota, bro. Okay, all right. I see that. I like that. All right, so Roger checked in and said, Curtis Samuel, a healthy Curtis Samuel is like the Bayhive waiting for Beyonce's album release. We want that ASAP. Rich checked in, said, you think he playing games because Terry got a bag and he ain't wanting to be here because he don't get attention? Jealousy situation, seeing the bringing in Doxson. Well, actually, let me ask you, AJ, because, look, you got a little bit more expertise than all of us. You know the ins and outs of how sometimes these players can respond to money moves and additions and subtractions and money situations. Basically, Richard is asking, do you think that Samuel could possibly be playing games and that he's not interested with what Washington's got going on because of what Terry just got financially, but also Washington bringing in Jahan Dotson as well? What do you think? Is there any credence to that, or how do you kind of view that type of question?
No, I don't know Curtis personally, but Terry McLaurin is his man. Like, that's his best friend on and off the field. Former roommates at Ohio State. Whatever, Curtis has been in this similar situation in his career with the Panthers when they took DJ Moore and also added Robbie Anderson. He's getting paid $14 million and he hasn't done shit. There's nothing to be jealous about or about the attention. His contract is way higher than Jahan Dotson. I think every every fan is rooting hard for their first round picks. So I don't think there's no hype really around Jahan Dotson unless you buy into Twitter and you're just reading constant stuff. But Jahan Dotson has done nothing on the NFL level for anyone to necessarily be excited about. The quarterback can't even get hit. So what, it doesn't even matter. At the end of the day, I just think it's one of those situations where the communication lines are blurred. When Washington puts a player up there PR-wise, they're supposed to have a better understanding of what they're going to say and how they're going to answer certain things. When they answer that they feel 100% fine, and then, maybe a couple days later, the head coach says that we have a plan for him and he's just not looking too good conditioning-wise, that's what causes this hysteria. And that's why I said they could do a better job of protecting him. But I don't think it has anything to do with the locker room and anything of that nature. I think, Curtis has always had some type of lingering injury. I shared it with you guys privately in the chat, like had a hamstring 2017, ankle, different things, and he has a smaller frame.
For those who don't know, I'm not about to blast you, AJ, but when AJ says certain things, I just want you to understand that AJ knows some shit that y'all want to stay in tune to. He just doesn't promote himself like he should. But I'm gonna give the floor back to AJ. But I just want y'all to know when he says certain things, pay attention to what he's saying, because some of that shit doesn't get reported, but he knows. Trust me. So go ahead. Floor's back to you.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's just what it is overall. Ron is trying to protect his guy. He drafted him in Carolina, but at the same token, he's not doing the best job of doing so in this market. And that's been one of Ron's hiccups, dealing with the Washington media. Like, the fan base knows football. You feel me? They know bullshit as well. This is an area of politics where we get fed a lot of shit from the Democratic and Republican side. So you're not about to fool us on the football side of things. And, I guess we'll see how it plays out. It'll be interesting next week when they had that first preseason game, and it's against Carolina next Saturday. If Curtis plays any, whatever, I think if he doesn't play any preseason games, you might as well just wrap it up, like call it a day and take your L.
All right, Lance, appreciate you checking in. He said, "Oh, he cracked." All right, so did you see that there was like 3 fans at Washington football camp? That's look. They've had bad look. I'm about to say they have their shortcomings. That's for sure. But they did a good job. Washington had of making sure that they invited as many people as possible and reopened as many applications as possible to make sure that shit never looks like that ever again for the rest of this training camp. Fellas, let's transition from Curtis Samuel. And let's get to some key takeaways from camp so far. Again, same thing with you all. I'm gonna give the floor. Key takeaways from training camp, whichever way that you want to go with this. The floor is yours. What are some things that has happened in the 6 days of training camp that is taking your attention and putting something on your radar? I'll hand it over to whoever wants to take the floor first.
Yeah, I'll go first. So far, one of the biggest takeaways I've taken, well, at least key takeaways, is this really encouraging to hear how good the secondary's been looking. Now, I don't know if that's a bad indicator for the quarterbacks or if they're just much improved, because that was one of the units that we were kind of going into the season questioning a little bit. You still didn't know what you had in Benjamin St. Juste. He was injured most of last season. Bobby McCain had an up and down season. As we know, we had Landon Collins, who we don't have this year. And then Cam Curl, he's always been a solid figure. Kendall Fuller, solid. But William Jackson was another guy. William Jackson was a guy last season that didn't look like the number one corner that you signed him to be. So, his name is a name that I've been hearing a lot this offseason so far, as far as he's looking really comfortable. He's even saying it himself. Last year he honestly said that everything felt foreign to him here. It was things that he was doing in Cincinnati that he's not now doing in Washington. So now he's saying he's feeling much more comfortable. He understands the system. And from what I also heard from a couple of guys is they kind of simplify things and just let them play fast and they don't have to think as much. So maybe that's going to help the secondary improve as a whole. but it's really good to just hear some of the storylines coming out on that unit, especially even with the young guys. Christian Holmes, the guy they drafted in the 7th round this year, I've been hearing good things about him. Percy Butler, that's a guy that apparently they want to kind of use whenever they go in that Buffalo nickel package. So he's been looking promising, showing flashes. So it's good to hear that unit is the strength. And hopefully, if they are, a strength going into the season, that's going to make this defense 100 times better going into the season.
AJ.
I didn't know they wanted to use Percy Butler as a Buffalo nickel. Have they seen him attempt to tackle in college?
Hey, look, he does say some questionable angles, man, and I've said that a couple times too. But look, the one thing that I'm hearing that I like is that he's flying around on the field, like in terms of like his speed is noticeable to the point where like it doesn't matter what his assignment was, he was making plays. That's what I heard from a couple people. So that's interesting. But to your point, if you're gonna play Buffalo nickel, you got to be able to be physical in that box and in that close to that line of scrimmage. So
that's why like I don't really care about training camp too much as long as guys are staying healthy. A lot of the reports that come out, it's not anything to really care about. Like I seen a lot of people were raving the other day. Oh, it was back-to-back interceptions from like whether it be Wentz, Howell, Heineke. Who cares? Like it's practice. You feel me? At the end of the day, what's really going to determine how this team is going to look, even if they want to call it vanilla, whatever, is preseason. When they're going against teams that don't know them, that don't go against them all the time, don't know their tendencies, and they aren't practicing against. Like that's why it would have been very interesting in training camp if they had did joint practices with another team. That's something that could be a great indicator for you going into the season or going into a preseason game, just giving you a better idea. But with training camp, man, I just wish that all the guys stay healthy, man. It's a lot of guys starting to get injured, and this is typically the time frame that happens. I just hope that these guys stay healthy. They're taking in the coaching that is out there for them. Just making the best of their ability to understand the playbook, their tendencies, the things that they want them to do. But really, I think our conversation livens up even more in the month of August once these preseason games kick in. Once they play Carolina, who else? Kansas? Is it Kansas City?
Well, we know Baltimore. Matter of fact, yep.
Baltimore.
Carolina, Kansas City, Baltimore. That's probably it right there.
Yeah. So week 2 of preseason is going to be your now week 3 of preseason due to it only being 3 games. So, it'll be interesting to see how these guys take to the coaching and how they adapt and how their game translates. Because, the Butler thing, hearing that he might be a Buffalo nickel is insane.
Well, to be fair, I heard this in OTAs, not so much training camp. So this was early. I haven't heard that recently. I know that's something Ron had mentioned before.
Okay, yeah, I think he's better as a free safety, but in that box, boy, he gonna be getting dogged every Sunday. But for me, I just want guys to stay healthy. That's it. That's my main thing with all training camps going on across the league.
So catching up on some of the comments, where are we at? Landon Collins still isn't signed yet. Quick question: do y'all think that we should go after Landon Collins, or do you think we should move on from the idea of Landon Collins returning to Washington? What do you all think?
I told y'all that Landon's still in the area, so I expect him to come back to the team because I don't really know if they'll be able to solidify that Buffalo nickel position. I think that's something that they'll test out during the preseason and probably.
That's probably about to ask you. I was about to say, do you think he come back now, or do you think they're gonna they're gonna see what they got, like the same thing with that linebacker situation? Because we know that like they're evaluating that linebacker spot, but I don't think they're entirely too sold on linebacker altogether. So you think that they're gonna let things play out in preseason first before they decide on Landon?
Yeah, I think it's two positions that they definitely could upgrade at. The Buffalo nickel, after the first preseason game, I think they could give Landon a call back And then I knew that they did have a conversation with Anthony Barr to play some linebacker and possibly fill in at DN on third downs because that's one of his strong suits. So I think they're just waiting to see how things play out with the preseason games and start making those calls to those two veterans in particular to try to add them to the mix.
So, first off, Breeze, DC Fan 87 on Twitch. I see you, big dog. HTTR. Okay, I see you with the original hashtag, big dog. I respect that. Absolutely. But to AJ's point, man, for those who don't know, when I tell you he knows some shit, he ain't gonna accept it. But I'm gonna tell you, he was the first person, because he told us, Dre, like a day before that Anthony Barr news came out that I sent to the chat. He told us that same night, or meaning the night before, that Washington was looking into the Anthony Barr situation, the linebacker situation. But now that it's public news, I can say that AJ was on that shit first. So when I tell y'all need to listen to some of the things that AJ is saying, like really listen. That's one of the nuggets. We'll see what they got with Anthony Barr, but they're still looking into him. I think it's him in Dallas, Washington and Dallas, right, AJ?
Yeah, it's between it was between Washington and Dallas at the time. Yeah, I got a relationship with Anthony, so yeah, so we pretty much talked about it.
I'll say, there you go.
Yeah, so.
There you go. All right, so we're gonna see what's going on with this linebacker situation. But yeah, Anthony Barr is on Washington's radar, and we'll see how that goes from there. But to your original point, Landon Collins and what Armani asked us, do we think that Washington is looking into Landon Collins? We'll see. I guess we'll wait till the preseason. Let's continue through some of the comments. Merle said, oh, yes. That's what we wanted to get into. One of the things we wanted to get into. So I'm going to circle back to Merle. I'm going to read the other comments and then go back to Merle. Roger said that Butler is a true free safety. He doesn't need to be in the box. He says that Forrest, Derek Forrest, Khalil Hudson should be the Buffalo position guy. Again, Washington, D.C. checked in on Twitch. And then Miss Perry said, that is my concern. Is the defense much improved, or are they feasting on a struggling old line? A new quarterback and a new offense still adjusting to the weapons around them? ? Or is it a bit of both? Excuse me. And to Merle's point, what Merle said was Trey Turner, Cornelius Lucas being hurt is a concern. Offensive line depth is being tested. He said Curtis Samuel will be released. To the offensive line point,
he gonna be on the roster. I can guarantee that for the season.
Right. But
I like Merle, man. Merle comes talking that shit every time.
Bro.
He be talking that shit
every time, bro. I love that shit, bro. But Merle, to the point of what he was saying, because it was something that was on my mind, man. We're so adamant about how this offensive line will look. Let me start with my opinion. I'm not even about to, I'm going to get a oop to y'all, but I want to start with my opinion on this offensive line. Like, I have preached for over a month and a half now that, sure, this offensive line ranked top 6 statistically, whichever metric that you wanted to use. Like, they ranked top 6, like, I think it was PFF or some shit, or maybe ESPN's win rates and all these things. Like, all these things are cute and respectable for the year in which, it was pertaining to. But this year is different. This year is different because Washington has lost Brandon Sheriff. Washington has lost Eric Flowers. Washington is not playing. I mean, now it's changed, but in the moment, Washington is not playing with Chase Roullier. Chase Roullier has come back now, but in that same vein, you're talking about. Could you try again? Oh my God, Siri, shut up. Siri tripping. But now you're talking about 3 interior offensive linemen where things have become influxed. And then on the left tackle side in training camp, you got a guy who's taking veteran days off. So all of these things you're thinking about, you're taking into account in a training camp in which the offensive line is clearly struggling to communicate. They're not being able to pass off rush stunts and line games properly, at least on the right side, where my main concern was Sam Cosmi. Now that Brandon Sheriff was gone, that was my main concern. Merle mentions Trey Turner being hurt with a quad injury. I think he missed 4 straight practices to this point now. And obviously Cornelius Lucas is on a non-football injury list. I don't think people are really taking into account the significance of the turnover that has happened on the offensive line position. But I also don't think that people are taking into account the fact that with this turnover comes a variety of aftermath or effects from the people that was here from a year ago. I don't necessarily think that it's going to just be all fine and dandy. I think, sure, Matt Sos is a good offensive line coach, but I think also in the same vein, just because he's a good offensive line coach, that he can quickly adapt to the players that he has now. Andrew Norwell, Trey Turner, they do things differently. They haven't always come from the same coaches and the same abilities. Like, I don't think that everything is all peaches when we talk about the offensive line. And I don't want to exacerbate the issue, but I do want to bring attention to the fact that the offensive line hasn't necessarily meshed well from an injury standpoint and the depth in fluctuation from the offensive line. So I want to get that to you all. What do you all think about the offensive line injuries? And do you all think that the offensive line is something where it's a non-issue or it's an issue? Like, where do you all weigh on that side?
For me, definitely you have to start with the depth is getting tested. And like you said, Chase Rouillet, I don't think he's taken part in full team drills yet. Like you said, Leno's taking vet days off. And then Trey Turner. Trey Turner is a guy that's supposed to be competing for that right guard starting position with Wes Schweitzer. And I like Wes Schweitzer. He's been playing a lot of center because of Chase Rouillet not being available right now to practice full. So Wes Schweitzer's playing center, but he would normally play guard. He's supposed to be competing for that spot with Trey Turner. And it really hurts to see Trey Turner not available to start this camp. And then Cornelius Lucas is a good point as well. I mean, that's your swing tackle, especially when Leno's taking these days off. Lucas would be the guy that steps in that spot, but Lucas is not there. So this brings forth to my issue, because I was actually looking at the roster the other day, and I was like, why does the tackle position look so thin? And I saw they listed Sadiq Charles at tackle, but I still don't know what you have in Sadiq Charles. Like, he's a guy that hasn't kind of stood out in the offensive line. I mean, I guess in a good or a bad way. So we still kind of don't know what we have there. Also, I don't even know if you have a defined position on the offensive line for Sadiq Charles, whether he's a guard or whether they see him as a tackle. So right now, I think they're just trying to find a role for him on that line. And I don't know. I mean, from what I'm hearing, the offensive line has been getting their ass kicked, so he must not have been doing too much. But on the flip side, to kind of give him a little bit of air, this is the first day they've had with full pads on. And this is, offensive line is one of the toughest positions to kind of gauge when in training camp or in OTAs, when you can't get physical with the defensive line. You can't put your hands on them too much. I mean, you can only try to stay in front of them. So the defensive line, especially with the guys we have, Allen, Payne, and Montez Sweat, they're going to kick their asses all day. I did hear that they looked a little bit better today with the first day of pads, but again, you still want the depth to look better. You want to get your guys back available. Like we said, like you talked about, Mual, Masco is a fine offensive line coach, but it's only so much he can do given what he's working with. So you don't want this to be a situation like it has been in the past, where we get a lot of guys injured and we're just hoping that, random guys that we're putting in there are, ready or up to the task of playing the offensive line for us or starting games for us. So you want to get your guys healthy first off. And also, I guess it's best to try to see or monitor this next week or so that offensive line, especially with the pads on now, to see if that defensive line is still going to be dominating them the way they have been throughout training camp so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the offensive line, you already have just what my guy Manny says it all the time. You got a bunch of Jags, like you got a bunch of guys, like so this already concerning thing. So when they're not on the field together, there's no way to build that continuity that you need throughout the season. Overall, I feel like I don't really know what's going on with the offensive line. I think it really boils down to Carson Wentz. No matter who's out there, is he going to be holding on to the ball long like he typically has done in his career or not? Because, I have seen like the reports that the offensive line has been getting dogged. Andrew Norwell has been getting dogged by Jonathan Allen regularly. He's going to be facing dogs like Allen throughout the season. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like, that's why I said these live game reps is what matters the most, because we'll get to see how quick that pocket will collapse. if it does, and if it does hold up, then we'll also get to see how long Carson Wentz is going to hold on to the ball or not. Because all I can do is go based off what I've seen out of Carson Wentz, out of my own eyes, and also the different players that they have. I have no clue what the starting offensive line is going to look like. I have no clue at all. I don't know if anyone on this panel does, but I don't really have an idea who the full offensive line is going to be. But I think you really destroyed the continuity when you got rid of Eric Flowers. I can't really say Brandon Sheriff as much because he knew that he wasn't going to be here and his teammates did. But when Eric Flowers got out the picture, you took the one dog from the offensive line out the picture altogether. Now they have no dog. They just got bodies.
I forgot my original point that I was going to bring up, but I will say that offensive line part where you mentioned there was not necessarily, I mean, there was Jags, but also the fact that these guys aren't in a position like the Brandon Sheriff part specifically. Like when you don't have necessarily that one staple and you have all these guys all together. Andrew Norwell is one person that, came back and we look at his accolades and we say, okay, cool, we can live with a guy like him. You look at Trey Turner, you say, okay, cool, we can live with a guy like him because of his accolades. Doesn't matter if Trey Turner can't stay on the field, and also doesn't matter if John Allen he was all pro last year. I don't care what people really say, he was all pro.
Top 5 player in this position.
Yeah, so Andrew Norwell is going up against the Dogs, so that is what it is. But I guess I'll transition. I think there's one thing too that I'm not being fair with. And AJ actually alluded to something in terms of the offensive line not really, having success against this defensive line unit, and specifically John Allen and Andrew Norwell. When we talk about underrated and overrated storylines to this point, I know I said what I said about the offensive line, which I agree is true, but I also think that what's overrated is the offensive line struggling for alternative reasons. I think overrated for me is offensive line struggling. I think the reason why, I believe the reason why it's overrated is because when we talk about everything that we just said about the offensive line, it's a mixed rotation, right? First off, that's the most important thing. It's a mixed rotation with all of these players that's involved. Sadiq Charles, he's not a starter. At one point, Wes Schweitzer was playing guard, and he was practicing at center all throughout the offseason prior to training camp. He's not playing there. You have a rotation at left tackle because of veteran days off, and the same thing with Andrew Norwell. Matter of fact, both of those guys had veteran days off. Like, all of these things don't really matter. But now that the pads have come on, I think everything that we have heard to this point is something that you should take note of. But I also think that you have to allow these guys to have that opportunity to mesh well together in terms of playing the starting 5. I think the only thing that you should be concerned about is the fact that these guys are hurt and they aren't available because they're injured. But outside of that, I think that this offensive line has potential to be at least a middle of the pack, if not like top 12 area. So I think when we talk about overrated storylines or underrated storylines from training camp to this point, my overrated storyline, fellas, is that the offensive line is struggling. I think to a degree it's something worth noting, but I don't think it's as exacerbated as I try to allude to. I just wanted to put it out there in terms of injuries and the fluctuations amongst the offensive line. That is something to take note of. But the offensive line is the starting 5 unit. I think that you can see something where it's somewhat stable if they can get that. And I hate the if games, fellas. That's not fair. But in this instance, when you're talking about people who aren't available and dealing with injuries, you can only do the if and hope that they're actually available for week 1. All 5 projected starting guys offensive line. So I'll hand it to you all. If you all want to comment on that, that's cool. But what is your overrated?
I was gonna say I'm gonna add one more thing to the offensive line thing. Just to say that this is a unit that you look at, and you can't really say that they, especially when you don't have a running game. Like right now, you're not game planning. Like running game sets up the passing game. Right now, the defense knows what you're doing, especially we just talked about first day and pads. So we kind of got to give those guys a little bit of leeway. And I know the last couple of training camps, this has kind of been a theme. We've always heard that the defensive line has been kicking the offensive line's ass, and then they come out and look really serviceable during the season. So you just kind of, that's a unit, and I agree with you, Jamal, on that being one of the overrated storylines, because that's a unit that you really can't tell right now until they start going consistently against opposing teams with game plans and stuff. Like, it's hard to gauge the offensive line. But to get into my overrated storyline, I think interceptions in training camp is an overrated storyline. It's one of those things that's kind of mass reported. Like when people go to training camps, that's the first thing you'll hear. Like today, I actually pointed out, I was like, damn, I didn't see any training camp reports today. Carson Wentz must not have threw an interception. Because yesterday, I mean, it was like we were watching a live game with all of the interceptions we heard him and Taylor Heineke and Sam Howell were throwing. And that's one of those things that kind of gets fans riled up, and fans say, oh, well, this guy's not looking good, he's not ready. But it's training camp. I mean, especially when the defense is going against you every day, they know exactly what you're doing. The offense is running any game plans in training camp. This is when you just want to see, especially a quarterback in a new system. Even though Carson has his own issues that we can allude to, and we've talked about all offseason, we've talked about the issues he's had in Indianapolis in his last couple of years at Philly. But one of the things that hasn't been an issue for Carson too much in his career is interceptions. So I think when you kind of report the whole interception thing, it kind of just adds fuel to the Carson Wentz can't do it fire, But again, I mean, that's not to endorse or say he should be this, that, or the third. But I just think it's one of those over-reported things in training camp that gets fans just excited or, riled up to say, hey, this guy is trash, whatever the case may be. I mean, this is kind of when you want them to throw their picks. You hope this, is not something, that's going on in the regular season. So that's my overrated storyline is interceptions thrown in training camp.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just want to ask you guys, who are you projecting to be the starting left tackle, left guard, and right guard?
Leno will be the starting left tackle. Left guard, I mean, as of right now, it looks like Andrew Norwell. Right guard, because Trey Turner hasn't played, looks like Wes Schweitzer is probably going to get that spot, even though, as me and Mual were talking about, he hasn't really played there this offseason because he had to fill in at center for Chase Roulier. So, of course, when Chase comes in at center, I think Wes Schweitzer has the fast track to the right guard position because Trey Turner has a practice. And then, of course, you got Sam Cosmi. So, I mean, on paper, it's a solid 5 guys. Almost similar to what you were supposed to have last year, minus Eric Flowers and Brandon Scherf. But Brandon Scherf, he gets injured a lot anyway. And the funny thing about Eric Flowers is I love him when he plays here. And AJ, you are right that we should have kept Eric Flowers, or he should be here. But Eric Flowers needs this team just as much as we need him. Like, he only does well here. New York, he was a bust. Miami, they released him early in a big contract. So it seems like we need him just as much as he needs us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it'll be interesting to see how it played out. I don't know if you guys have been looking at some of the content the team has been putting out, but they gave like a behind the scenes of draft night when they were like taking calls from like Howie Roseman, Green Bay Packers, New Orleans Saints, with trading back and seeing if these teams wanted to make moves with them. And it looked to me, maybe I'm overlooking it or whatever, but it looked to me that this team was actually considering at 16 taking Kenyon Green, the guard out of Texas A&M, and Houston jumped in front of them and took him. And then you hear Ron Rivera and Mayhew having a conversation, and Ron's like, we have to take Dotson here. So that was kind of, eye-catching for me a little bit, because they probably know that they have a weakness at guard. And there were reports saying that, Kenyon Green could be projected there even at, 13th overall.
Well, when was Norwell signed? He was signed after the draft?
He was signed pretty early on a free agency, I believe.
I think he was signed after they released
Eric Flowers.
They released Eric Flowers.
And they released Flowers right before, I think,
before the draft
started. Before free agency started, because that's when they were creating space and
I
stuff.
don't remember the fucking timeline. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that is interesting. And again, like I give credence to that situation because I mean I don't want to. It's hard for me to jump to conclusions with that specific storyline, but I do understand it given that I've preached that this is an entirely new unit, and if you're relying on Trey Turner and Andrew Norwell, I get the accolades, I get the precedents, I get their history and their resume, but did they really trust them? Who knows? And maybe they just wanted to add in competition. So, we'll see where that goes for that. I know you said you were just going to ask us a question, so I'll move on to underrated storylines, and I'll start this one off. So actually, first off, let me actually check in with OG. OG left a comment. Matter of fact, a couple comments. Merle said AJ is right. Eric Flowers gave the line a nasty streak. OG also alluded to that he doesn't understand why Flowers isn't here, considering that he can play at a higher level than guard than play at a higher level at guard and tackle. Than Charles. Charles Leno. That's the starter right there. That's interesting. Washington DC fan said, "Don't worry about it. We are going to the Super Bowl this year." But he said, all jokes aside, he thinks it's going to be a good year. He also thinks that he feels it, but he's going to be ready for a letdown like normally. And then OG said that his overrated storyline for him is the Buffalo Nickel. That's his overrated storyline. So let's get into the underrated storylines. Everybody in the chat, everybody that's around, what is your underrated storyline? And I'll start mine off because it's correlated to what Dre mentioned early on. He said interceptions and things like that was an overrated storyline. My underrated storyline is Carson Wentz, man. Carson Wentz has been struggling throughout training camp, and the reason why I think that this is an underrated storyline is not necessarily due to the fact that he's just he's struggling or whatever. I think that the issues that he's had in particular in training camp has been a constant narrative that we have come across during Indianapolis, his latter years in Philadelphia, up in terms of his play during the regular season, all these things, like the storyline that we've come across and what he is not seeing on the field. Like, he would start a game well. My bad. He would start a practice well and then abruptly finish miserably. And that's me exaggerating, but he wouldn't finish it well. Like, he never has put together a full practice since he's been here. And when people are saying that he's struggling and missing reads, and also like one of the biggest things in terms of storylines and what he missed recently was the fact that, Terry was lined up apparently on Jamin Davis. So I would assume that he was in the slot, probably running like a slot fade or maybe down the seam. I said slot fade. Yeah, matter of fact, maybe a slot fade. Who knows? Slot fade or maybe running the seam route. Because if you're matched up on Jamin Davis, you're somewhat tight. You're in a tight split to an extent. You're close to the line of scrimmage, so that's the only reason Jamin Davis would be on you. And Carson Wentz didn't see that. He didn't recognize the matchup. He didn't attack the matchup. I think that's one thing, and I think he checked it down. And out of all things, Carson Wentz is known not to check footballs down, and he checked it down when you had Terry McLaurin lined up on Jamin Davis, a linebacker. But that's the biggest example. But I say that in terms of underrated storylines, is Carson struggling because when you think about everything that's been going on in terms of prior to his arrival here in Washington, if people aren't paying attention to what storyline is going and what storyline is brewing with Carson Wentz, I think that they're making a mistake because they like what they see with or they like the idea of Carson Wentz with the weapons that he has in Washington, which I do. But if he's struggling at training camp, I can't ignore that either. And that's why I say it's an underrated storyline. So, fellas, what do you all think? What is an underrated storyline? And if you all want to comment on Carson Wentz part, obviously the floor is yours too.
Yeah, I mean, Carson Wentz part, I guess I would say it's expected. I mean, at some point, we have to trust our eyes and who people are. I don't expect a big leap to happen just because now Ron Rivera is in his ear, or coddling him and making him feel like the number one child and trying to do everything to make him comfortable. He is who he is. That's why I'm like, I don't care about none of this training camp stuff, like, at all. Like, those live game reps and how much they decide to play him in preseason will tell me everything I need to know about Carson Wentz and Ron Rivera overall. Because in the time that Ron has been here, he's tried to coddle starters a lot, especially quarterbacks, as far as playing in preseason. Now you got this new quarterback in with these wide receivers. Your offensive line is all over the place. You need to get these live reps against actual competition to see how you're going to maneuver with your play calling and things of that nature. So I think I'll be able to give a better assessment on, Carson Wentz and what's going on in training camp next week if he gets to play more than 20 snaps.
And yeah, so I was actually wondering that yesterday as well, AJ, about Carson Wentz's snaps. How many, or at least how many drives? And I went back and looked last year in preseason. Ryan Fitzpatrick played a total of 6 drives in the preseason last year. He didn't play the last game. He played the first 2 games. Well, the 2 games. Third game he set out. The first 2 games he played a total of 6 drives. So I'm kind of looking at that as a baseline of probably what you'll see from Carson Wentz in this preseason. But my hope is that if he is playing somewhere in that 6 drive range, that he looks promising, or the offense in general looks promising, like they're scoring. Like, I mean, if you're playing 6 drives, I want to see 4 scoring drives, out of those 6 drives. Like, that's something promising. Otherwise, I don't feel so confident or comfortable with him not playing many drives or many snaps in this offense. Like, I want him to get the reps and, at least get really comfortable or show that he's ready to lead this offense this year. I mean, because he has a lot, we have a lot of questions about Carson Wentz. I mean, regardless of what Ron and them traded for him, or like you said, AJ, the confidence that they're displaying in him, the coddling that they're doing, he has a lot of question marks. Like, he's not guaranteed to be here after a year. He's not guaranteed to be your starting quarterback for multiple years. This is pretty much his last chance as showing that he can be a franchise caliber quarterback. So, I mean, and to Mual's point about that being his underrated storyline, now Mual is absolutely right. Like, my gripe was with the focus being on the interceptions, but a lot of people are saying this out there watching Carson Wentz is that he is missing a lot of passes. And these are the misses that we've seen in Indianapolis and Philly the last couple of years where, just a tad off. So, I mean, but obviously, and back to AJ's point about preseason, training camp, this is why I hate training camp as well. I mean, because you just really can't gauge any of this, like, until you start seeing these guys play with a game plan or against, other action. But the concerning thing, I guess, for Carson is that we have seen him the last couple of years in action, and it just wasn't great for him. Even though, I mean, a lot gets blown out of proportion with the Indianapolis stint. I mean, Carson wasn't like trash in Indianapolis, but he wasn't great either. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't, 2017 Carson, which he will probably never, ever be again in his career. But I mean, a lot of people go back to the Jacksonville game, I mean, so that you can do that. But with Carson, like I said, my question is, can you win games with Carson? Will he win you more games than he loses you? And right now, you can't look at Carson as a guy to say, can he take you over the top to the Super Bowl? Now, I know that's what you hope. I mean, obviously, that's the pinnacle of a fan's hope, and Ron Rivera's hope as well. I mean, this is a guy he took a chance on. But as of right now, I'm kind of looking at Carson Wentz as, can he do what Kirk Cousins did with us? Can he lead us? Can he win games? Can we win games?
Well, I never saw today that Dre said something about Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. And I have to be fair, and you're right. I have to be fair there. And, because that's just what the quarterback market is. Like, we don't have a top 5 quarterback right now. We don't have a guy that we drafted that we're expecting to be this, later star or whatever the case may be. We have Carson Wentz right now. So right now, the hope with Carson Wentz, at least, to keep expectations a little tempered is that he is in that Kirk Cousins tier right now, where you can win games, and hopefully the cast around him is good enough to, where everyone works off of each other and you get to where you want to be. So that's just the hope right now. But getting to my underrated storyline, I gotta say the Jamin Davis is kind of an underrated storyline right now, and it's an important storyline because linebacker, as I talked about earlier with the secondary, and I mentioned how it's promising to hear how great these guys are looking, because what you have in a defensive line, you have a really talented defensive line, and hearing that the secondary is looking really good. Now the question is, what's going on in the middle, and is that going to be the downfall of this defense? If the gamble, this is a gamble that Ron Rivera and the staff took, in that Cole Holcomb and Jamin Davis are the guys that they need at linebacker position, and is that enough to satisfy that position or that unit? And it's important. Like Jamin Davis, obviously he had a rough rookie year. Now, what is he doing now? I don't really hear much about him. Like, I don't really hear much about the competition at linebacker. I haven't heard much about that at all this offseason. So that's been kind of an issue for me, and kind of a concern in a sense, in to say, sure, your defensive line is what it is. The secondary can be improved, but is this linebacking core going to be the downfall of this defense, or will it solidify this defense to where they want to be this season?
Yeah. So one thing just to help them out, and you got the floor after this, AJ, just to help them out with Jamin Davis. Ron Rivera did happen to speak on Jamin actually today, and he spoke on Jamin Davis's progression and on if he's more comfortable due to him identifying run lanes and coverage guys. So I'll read these things and AJ got the floor to this. So Rivera said that he's very happy with Jamin Davis' progression. You see a lot of good and positive things from Jamin right now. He's much more comfortable with what we're doing and how we're doing it. He picked up the way that we're doing things in terms of reads and his drops. Reading through his drops and understanding concepts is really big. He's done a nice job with that. As with Cole and as with who was the other person he mentioned? He just mentioned Cole. So last year he was more at will, outside linebacker, and then when JB John Bossa got hurt, they moved him to Mike, and he really showed very well. So now there's an opportunity for Jesus Christ, this man Rivera he moves a lot. But back to Jamin Davis on if he's more comfortable with identifying run lanes and coverage guys. He said that's basically it. Understanding the fits a lot better than he did last year, and then as he said, understanding how to read progressions of the route combinations in front of him. So those are some words from Ron Rivera himself. Cole Holcomb did have some positive words to say about Jamin Davis as well after practice today. But those are some things about Jamin Davis from the coach and the player or his teammate. So yeah, AJ, you got the floor. What was you about to say?
I was just gonna say, I think like I haven't been doing too much reading of training camp and everything of that nature, but I'm pretty sure if the things that you're talking about, Mual with Wentz or whatever, he's probably throwing the ball high, and that's typically what he's been doing majority of his career. So that's why I said, like, at some point you have to trust who the player is. Like, they are who they are. It's very rare that guys are just gonna change overnight, especially at the quarterback position. But one of the alarming things that you did mention was like Terry McLaurin had Jamin Davis on him, and Carson didn't automatically go there. That means he's still not reading his defenses, and that's one of my biggest things I don't like about Carson Wentz. I feel like he does not read coverage well. I feel like he just does whatever he wants to do. If you automatically see Terry McLaurin, your number one wide receiver, on a linebacker, you're supposed to go there no matter what. No matter what, you're supposed to go there.
Shit, Terry said that after the play. He's like, "Hey, bro, I got Jamin on me, bro. throw that shit."
I mean, that means you're not reading the coverages. You're just doing whatever you want to do. Like, you're freelancing. And it's so important for your quarterback to understand pre-snap what's going on, and after snap. Like, pre-snap, the read already shows you that, hey, I'm going to have Jamin Davis defending or a linebacker on my number one wide receiver. I'm supposed to go there no matter what. No matter what, I'm supposed to go there. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just one of those nuances that it actually – that's something that does matter in training camp is how your quarterback is reading the coverage, especially they're not going to get sacked. So you should be able to diagnose things easier and be able to be comfortable in what you have to do because nobody's going to hit you. You have that red jersey on. And if you aren't making simple reads of that nature, then, yeah, we got an issue. But I guess they plan to play a lot of 5-man front and 2 linebackers. So
we will see. Okay, so let's close out with some of these comments and then get up out of here. So Roger mentioned not having scrimmages with another team is going to hurt, just like last year. You and AJ are on the same boat. You all mentioned both scrimmages with other teams and the fact that they should be doing that, and they aren't. They haven't even thought about it, which is weird. I ain't gonna lie to you. Okay, so Corey checked in. Corey, appreciate you checking in, big dog. I hope all is well with you. He said that we just need Wentz to make the throws that Ford couldn't. We had cats running wide open last year. That is true. I mean, it's a longer discussion, in terms of what you said, but I do agree with your bottom line. Some of the throws that Ford wanted to make, he couldn't. It is what it is. Roger checked in. Roger said his underrated storyline is Khaleke Hudson. When he was called on, he played well. I don't understand why he isn't getting any run. He played the Viper position at Michigan, similar to our Buffalo nickel position. And then Corey checked in again one more time, said got to give Wentz at least a few weeks in camp to get it together. Hey, camp is only 2 weeks. That's it. Once camp is over, you're in the preseason thing, you're in the thick of things, that's it. So for them, training camp is really 2.5 weeks, and then they back to, competing, regularly, but it is what it is. You kind of understand that. And then my boy Montel, Jeff Goat, he's been on the show a few times. He said, I get the Wentz stuff, but many times in camp, they're not telling the QB to read the defense. Sometimes they want to get a look at a particular receiver or tight end or see how a play develops. Haskins' rookie year, for example, they told him to let loose. Forget the checkdowns or easy routes to get a feel for their deeper routes. Again, longer conversation, but I understand where your head is at with that one. Fellas, before we close out of here, y'all got any last comments, thoughts that we want to talk about, anything Commanders related or anything that y'all want to talk about that y'all got going on in y'all life, man? I know Dre told us about Lil Man and his basketball things. Anything y'all want to talk about before we get up out of here?
I think one of the items for me was the Kyler Murray addendum in his contract.
Okay, talk about it.
I just feel like, representation matters. I think if he has a African-American agent, they would never let that go forward. In that case, it's just like, the agent just wants to secure the bag and doesn't care about the repercussions that could have. And he's obviously shown he doesn't know how to handle the public side for Kyler Murray before this contract situation as what he did with, what was going on with his Instagram and everything of that nature. But now, like, Kyler Murray, no matter how much money he gets paid, no matter what he does in his career, always will have that stigma on him that he doesn't study, he's not prepared. Like, if he has a bad game, it's going to be right there after him for the rest of his career. They
took that out of his contract, right?
They took it out, which means
crazy.
It could have been taken out before it was signed.
You're right.
This never goes public, but I just feel like a lot of people in the media and the fans don't realize that not every agent is that transparent with clauses and different things in an agreement. Some guys just tell their clients what the upfront money is and how much you'll get at signing, roster bonuses, but not the clause element. And I just feel like Kyler Murray's brand is ruined forever due to that.
What you think about RG3 comment? RG3 piled on them. Did you see RG3's comments on it?
No,
I didn't. So give me a hip. What happened?
So RG3 came out with a tweet and he basically said, I am very bothered by this Kyler Murray situation. He said, first he has to deal with being short. And then he says, some say he looks like a toddler out there running the football. And now they add a clause saying that he has to study for 4 hours a week. What in the reading rainbow is going on in Arizona? That's what RG3 said. He threw that toddler comment was totally a shot that was unnecessary.
Man, RG3 is doing his best to get that number one spot at ESPN on the football side.
Hey, listen to what he did with the Deron Payne and John Allen shit. Like, we talked about that part. Like, that man.
Even though I didn't think that was that bad.
But
I didn't think what RG3 said about Payne was that bad, though, honestly.
Nah, I get what he's doing.
Fighting.
What he's doing is very smart because that's what these executives want to see. They want to see you utilizing your social footprint to gain more traction outside of your TV appearance. Those are opportunities that are going to happen for RG3. He'll get more. But, I mean, in regards to the Kyler Murray comment, man, it's just there's already a stigma that black quarterbacks aren't prepared and they don't review film. Like, the last thing that you want on paper is you agreeing to a clause that says that you need to study more. You need to study an additional time frame, especially 4 hours. Like 4 hours during the week, like you're talking about an hour extra a day. Like that doesn't even make sense. It's not going to make or break anything.
I do want to ask you this. I know you mentioned earlier that the representation may not have mentioned this to Kyler, but wasn't that something that they should mention to Kyler? Don't you think this is something that Kyler should have known? But being as though in this contract it states if he doesn't do this, then he faces some kind of smack on the hand with this contract.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you would hope that his agent is telling him. The team is not going to tell him that. His agent's supposed to go over the details for himself before, proofreading it and having his guy go and sign it, whether it be at the facility or, however the case is. He's supposed to give him the outline of everything, and especially something of that nature should have never even made it to the final paperwork for him to sign. It should have never even gotten to that point. But, it's the agency world is crazy, man. Like, motherfuckers just want they bread. They don't care about these players. Like, they don't care about the branding. They don't care about.
It's even worse. Like, to this day,
what could happen
hearing
to
what you're saying.
Yeah, what could happen to a guy's reputation and everything he's worked for? Because Kyler can ball. You feel me? Like, he's not an idiot. It's not like he's just out there freelancing and doing whatever. Like, it's just now he has that stigma on him for the rest of his career. He'll never be able to get rid of. And unfortunately, his agent was trying to make a splash. That's a big deal that you could utilize to go and acquire other talent coming out of college or even in the league. You can go based off the numbers, and the agent just signed with Rock Nation Sports. So that was huge for him to do that deal. And maybe he thought that he wouldn't be able to get that clause removed, whatever, but it's already like a conflict of interest. He represents the head coach too. So it's even more dumbfounding that clause was in there because he represents Cliff Kingsbury as well. So yeah, it's just weird, man. I feel bad for Kyler because at the end of the day, like everything that he does, whenever he has a bad game this year, that's the first thing they're going to bring up.
All about.
But see, and I agree with that, AJ. But my issue, like I said, with the thing is, I have a hard time believing Kyler didn't know that this was in the contract or that this would be a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, for me personally, I mean, I'm trying to think back to, I don't know how old Kyler is, 23, 24, somewhere around that range. I'm trying to think back to me at that point. And I still think if I would have looked at something like that on my clause in the contract, I said, this is embarrassing. Like this is embarrassing. I'm not signing that with that in the contract, especially if you explain to me that if I'm not studying for 4 hours a week or whatever the case may be, then you're going to ding me or whatever, whatever you can do with this contract. No. And then plus, if it gets out in the media, someone had to tell him. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm pretty sure he knew going into the situation what this was. What I think happened with Kyle, and this is my opinion, I don't think that he thought that this would be a big media issue. So that's where I'm at right now. Like, I don't know how much of an organizational issue or an agent issue it is, but my thing is, I think with Kyler, I don't think he thought it would be a big media issue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Kyler thinks, but you know, if you have an agent that you hire, you will hope that they would bring to your to your attention, like, hey, this could be a big ordeal. You're hiring someone of that nature to be out there to protect you at all times. So just having that in there, whether Kyler did agree to, hey, I'll just go forward, it shouldn't be a big deal. That agent's supposed to be like, no, I can't do this. You're an African-American quarterback, like the stigma behind, you know, what goes on with guys at your position that do what you do. Like, look what they're doing with Lamar Jackson, all those things. Like, I have to protect your brand and all those things at the end of the day. And if that's not happening, then you have issues. But I feel like Kyler's even in a worse situation now. He can't even come out and be like, I didn't even know what was in there. You feel me? I just knew about the money, and maybe I knew about the roster bonuses along the duration of the agreement, but I did not know about no clause about me having to spend 4 extra hours every week during the season to study game tape. And if I don't, this shit can be clocked by the iPad, then I'm going to be in default. Like I confidently can say 110% that he did not know about that clause in there. All he knew about was the guaranteed money, what he's going to get at signing, and how long the agreement was. Anything after that, he ain't know shit about.
But say at the end of the day, what it sounds like, and I agree with, is that the agent dropped the ball, and the only thing after that is, what was the intent with the agent? Did he just chase the money, or did he just literally drop the ball? I don't know. I personally don't know. Is what I'm saying. I personally don't know if he what his intent was behind the situation. Was he just chasing the money and he wanted to make sure that Kyler Murray was happy, or did he simply, was he aware and he chose to not share this information about an addendum in this contract that subjects his client to 4 hours per week of film study, mandatory film study. And who knows, man, because obviously the after effect is what AJ described, so we don't have to rehash that. But AJ brought up an excellent point, man. Agents can get people in trouble sometimes, especially if they aren't mentally aligned with their client. I think that's the safest way to put it. If they aren't aligned or on the same page as their client, then they're in trouble, and they can get their clients in trouble as well in the public light.
Well, last thing I'll say on this is, I personally think that, and we do know the agents, we've seen agents get fired, for less, before. But I think for the team to have put that in there, that might have been one of the holdups with this contract. Remember, Kyler had an issue with the whole contract situation in Arizona and, signing. He did the whole Instagram cleansing, unfollowing everybody, removing all Arizona Cardinals, whatever. So I feel like that was one of the things the team probably brought to the agent, like, hey, in order for us to offer Kyler this deal, this has to be in it. And that's at the point where the agent goes to Kyler and say, hey, Kyler, they want to add this clause in the contract. Are you okay with this? And I just have a hard time believing Kyler went into this blindsided and finding out when we did. Like, basically when SportsCenter released this contract or this information saying that Kyler has to study for 4 hours a week or else he's whatever. Like, I have a hard time believing that Kyler didn't know that was in there. It was just a thing where, in my opinion, I just believe that Kyler just didn't think it was that big of a deal. And I think personally, that was probably one of Arizona's reservations about giving Kyler a big deal is he going to be a guy that's going to be in the playbook of study? And again, I think the whole thing is stupid. I think that should never be in anyone's clause. Like, I don't think that should ever be in a deal.
It's never been in a NFL contract ever before, bro. So it's like, that's why it's wild for me. And I think like the story even coming out there is even more crazier. At the end of the day, a lot of these guys don't really understand the business or the clauses that they're even agreeing to. Some of them learn about it throughout the season. That's why you see like the last game of the season, so many guys are out there trying to get picks. They're trying to get a certain amount of yards, catches, whatever, to reach their incentives within their agreement. They're not being told about that until later in the season. because the agent also gets paid off of those incentives that you hit. So it's all connected to money. But I just wanted to bring that up, because I didn't want to talk about it next week or whatever. But I just felt like that shit is insane to me that it even went down like that. I just feel bad for his brand as a whole. I don't even think winning a Super Bowl will ever cure that stigma from him.
Hey man, look, you got the chat talking about it, Brad. Like a lot of people think about this situation. Amani checked in, Corey checked in, Hawk checked in, said Kyler. Shannon Sharp said it best. The Kyler situation never happened to any other quarterback but Kyler. It's a 1-on-1. They didn't do it to Warren Moon, Steve McNair, Vince Young, Jamarcus Russell, Cam Newton. He named a bunch of other quarterbacks as well. And Amani mentioned that Kyler should fire his agent for that. Hawk also followed up lastly with, they're mentally aligned with his money.
And see, even the bad part is he fires the agent. The agent still gets 1 to 3% of that contract. So it's like, that's why I'm like, the money is a bigger picture to some of these people. Like, they can preach all they want to. We family, got his best interest at heart. At the end of the day, you signing that $240 million contract, I'm getting my cut. It's going to take care of my family. I don't give a shit about your brand.
Hey, well, look, we're gonna close it out with this one. My man Roger checked in. I don't care what the StreamYard overlays are looking like. Hit the like button, man. He said his guys know their shit. Great commentary, great knowledge, man. We appreciate everybody checking in. We finna close out right now, man, and let everybody know we are back next Tuesday. This crew, the Washington Commanders, all 32. I said all 32. That's funny. Washington Commanders.
I'm about
Tuesday.
to hit that AV dance.
All 32 tomorrow. Commanders side next Tuesday. Commanders morning show is tomorrow, 7 a.m. Man, I'm on the grind. We all on our grind, man. Hey, football season is back. We're trying to make shit happen.
We got football Thursday. We got football.
Football Thursday, man. So make sure everybody locked in. All these things. So the fellas, we back next Tuesday. All 32 is tomorrow. I'm back tomorrow morning. Commanders morning show. Everybody grinding, man. Everybody getting their shit together. The fellas is around, man. So hey, football season's back. Y'all be safe. Enjoy y'all evening. Enjoy y'all night. And enjoy y'all morning. Whenever y'all watching or listening, we out of here, man.
Yes, sir.
Peace.